The season of endurance has officially arrived. And today on V8 Extra, we're back in the middle of the action in the pit paddock for the Dick Smith Sandown 500. We'll outline our top 10 awesome Bathurst moments. Our special guest is ex-Formula One driver Christian Klein from Super Cheap Auto Racing. Larko explains the games endurance drivers have to play. And we'll cover off all the latest news and pit lane chat. That's all ahead today on this special trackside edition of V8 Extra.
Hi everybody, thank you very much for joining us today on V8 Extra. As always, it is great to have your company. Yes, we're right smack bang in the middle of the paddock here for the Dick Smith Sandown 500. The season of endurance is upon us. Sandown, Bathurst and then the Armour All Gold Coast 600. So it's a very important time in the V8 Supercars Championship Series. First time back at Sandown for a 500k race since 2007. And if you missed the action yesterday, boy, did we have an extraordinary day. A co-driver race, a primary driver race and a qualifying session, action-packed day. I'm very pleased to say that we've got a couple of very special guests to explain it all today. Would you please welcome Shane van Gisbergen and Will Davison. Seventh driver to grab a pole position in 2012. Congratulations, Shane. That was an awesome mega moment for you.
Yeah, thank you. It was my first one as well. Luke did a good job in his race. He won it, and you know, we tuned the car up from the problems he had, and we managed to win our race as well, which is really cool. It'll be good to start off the pole for the main race. It's a long way, but I'm sure we can do it.
I thought the format yesterday was very good. We first of all saw the co-drivers, and it was a pure race between those guys. I mean, there was some wild stuff going on all day, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. But Luke did a mega job here because he withstood the blowtorch from everybody. We thought Johnny Mack was going to get him at one stage, but he managed to skip away. Paul Dumbrell was chasing him down as well, and then, of course, you guys saddled up and away you went. And, you know, it was just fantastic motorsport for all parties to sit back and enjoy this, whether you're a team player, a driver, or you're watching on television or a commentator. Our heart rates were up. Give us your thoughts. What sort of a run was it?
Yeah, it was quite good. As you saw in Luke's race, he had a train of cars behind him, and he just played to the strengths of the car. It was good out of the corners. And then in my race, it was quite interesting with Jamie. I was trying to push him on, but then he made a couple of mistakes, as we see here, and I was able to run away with it.
That's a nice shot when you see a little bit of fresh air like that coming in to the final corner out of turn 12 for the last lap after 20 laps, and Shane gets his victory for Stone Brothers Racing and for SP Tools. Now, this bloke over here, wow, what a day, Will. Talk about the ups and downs and the highs and lows of motorsport, and today you're going to be buried on the grid somewhat.
I know, we qualified yesterday, and I did a 9.3, put it on pole, and here I am on the back row of the grid for today. So crazy range of emotions, but at the end of the day, putting my fan hat on, I think there was plenty of carnage, and we certainly didn't need to bring a couple of birds out to get a safety car yesterday.
I'm puzzled because Mark Scape and I were talking about this earlier, because we ran the warm-up, the final practice session, if you like, before today's race just a few moments ago, and the number of cars off the road and people having trouble at turn 4, people having trouble at turn 9, and that's what bit you yesterday.
Yeah, I made a silly mistake. I was second in race 2 and went off the track. Shane and I were just having a chat, and it was so slick down into Dandenong Road there. I mean, I thought I took it easy, and it's like there was a sheen of oil on the track, and I think you saw a lot of errors there yesterday.
Now, we saw a bit of push and shove in the co-drivers race down at turn 1, but in relative terms, it was a reasonably quiet race. However, in the main race, for you primary drivers, for the blokes that do it all the time, it was a little bit like Friday night at the Speedway. It was extraordinary. Our heart rates are up, and there was some mad stuff going on. And in fact, there's been a bit of comment about this in the media last night and again this morning, and you weren't too happy.
Listen, you know, I'm all for hard racing. It's great to see, and that's what it's all about, putting on a good show. But to be honest, a 20-lap qualifying race, you'd swear it was the last lap of the Bathurst 1000. I mean, it was on, and there was some stupid stuff going on.
Well, specifically, you were upset with James Moffat, said so this morning in the national press. So what was it that aggravated you?
Oh, there was just some racing that was, I thought, just borderline dangerous, you know. So a lot of torn up equipment and bashed panels for no reason. You know, I just wanted to give my boys an early night for the big 500k to race today, but it was just like a demolition derby, and I just didn't want to play. I
don't think anybody had an early night. Let's have a look at the grid and the lineup for the Dick Smith 500 today, and we've highlighted the top 4 championship contenders for you on these graphics so that you can pick out the guys that are playing for keeps in the championship as well as trying to get a result today. That's nice to see your name at the top there with Luke.
Definitely pretty good.
It's a big smile smile on your face. Looking further down the order, you can see that Frosty and Stephen Richards, his partner, will start from position number 15. Jamie Whincup and Paul Dumbrell. I mean, the extraordinary thing was, first of all, we kind of dropped our lips and thought, oh, this is such a shame for Ford Performance Racing. And then that should have been a free kick for Team Vodafone. That didn't happen.
It's funny how that happens, doesn't it? Sometimes, you know, we're all just, no one's blinking and we're all getting great results, and then all of a sudden we all have a shocker in one day. So that's the only positive. And to be honest, looking on the positive, I don't want to be on the back row, but I'm kind of excited to, you know, to have a different challenge today.
There'll be no shortage of passing in your world today, no doubt. Now, of course, we're covering all of the action today for the Dick Smith Sandown 500 in the pit lane. We'll have Mark Beretta and Mark Larkham working flat out through the afternoon. He's managed to grab a bloke who's got something of a target on his back at the moment. Larko's with James Moffat.
Yeah, I don't know about a target on his back, but James, just listening to Will Davison, clearly agitated about yesterday. It was a highly intense race. I can't remember seeing anything recently like it. What's your take on it?
I don't know about a target. I've certainly got a tick on the back of my back. But, yeah, look, it was a crazy race, that's for sure. And, you know, probably some people on the outside would think it was a 20-lap race to set the 500k grid today, but it probably didn't look like that. And Will probably thinks I ruined his world, and he was sort of, I guess, in the wrong place at the wrong time with a little bit of contact that Lee and I had down at turn 1. But at the end of the day, I'm here to race hard and race fair. And you know, he's been mouthing off a bit overnight, and he hasn't had the guts to come up and actually say anything to me. So that's a bit disappointing. And, you know, if he wants to continue like that, then he's more than welcome to. But, you know, in the big picture, he's racing for the championship. I'm not, so I've got nothing to lose. But, yeah, it's a bit disappointing to, I guess, somebody like him to you know, I guess referring to me as an amateur. But, you know, we all make mistakes at times. And, you know, it was a mistake that led to him being around me from himself being around me in the race anyway. So hopefully we can work it out. But, you know, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it either.
That's what I love about you, mate. Nice, frank assessment. Thank you for that.
No problem.
Thanks, Larko. New balls, your serve.
It's all good. Moff's a good guy. He's got a great sponsor. Norton are friends of mine. He's got a great manager.
Yeah, he's got a great... You both share the same manager, so the debrief when they get back to David Siegel's place next Monday,
he's a good bloke, but, you know, I think at the end of the day, I don't know how many races he's finished this year, and he's been through a few spare parts, so hopefully he can learn and he might start finishing some races.
You're probably starting to pick up on the theme of the way things are going to unfold this afternoon. We are set for a great race. Just to go back and make a couple of points, Tim Slade, by the way, came into this gig losing 5 grid spots as a result of something that happened on Friday. So he qualified 4th but goes back to 9th. And I should make mention that young James has been penalised 5 spots for all that stuff that happened yesterday. Goes back from position 11 to 16. I think there's also some fine involved in that, and we'll detail that more in the coverage. And Todd Kelly's been docked 25 points as well. Boys, have a great afternoon. Shane, congratulations again on the pole position. I think it's going to be a big day. We'll grin and bear it, and from 27th. It's going to be a big one.
It's going to be fun.
All right, we're going to take a break on V8 Extra. When we come back, we'll meet Formula 1 driver Christian Klein joins us, and Scafie will be up here as well. Stay with us. This is V8 Extra.
You'll find us chasing the shadow. You'll find us chasing the shadow.
More sport on 7. It's a great time of the year, AFL footy finals time, and a great time of the year for motorsport as well, because we are in the paddock for V8 Extra today, the pre-game show for the Dick Smith Sandown 500, surrounded by a heap of passionate fans tucked in behind the garages. And again, I've got some very special guests. It's time to welcome to the program Mark Scaife and former Formula 1 driver Christian Klein, who's driving for Super Cheap Auto. Christian, great to have you here in our country again.
Thank you very much, and I'm finally looking forward to actually race these cars. Obviously, I spent quite a fair bit of time this year in Australia, in the co-driver sessions, some of the other events, and got obviously some tests in these cars as well. So I'm happy to start racing now.
And you're pairing up, of course, with Russell Ingall, an old mate of Mark Scaife's, an old friend of ours. And Scaife was cheeky as soon as you sat down about how that relationship's going, but he's got a massive amount of experience. He's a great guy to pair up with.
He's good, obviously, and that helps me a lot. He's very experienced around all these circuits, and especially in endurance races. You can still pick up a lot of things from him. And you know, so far our relationship has been quite good.
So far.
Hopefully it continues like this.
Now, I should point out that Christian's got an enormous amount of Formula One experience, and you still do some simulator work even to this day, as I understand it. But 49 Grand Prix starts. I think you've been present for just under 60 GPs. Time at Jaguar when I first met you. Also at Red Bull Racing. Some testing with Honda. Some testing with BMW Sauber. Some testing with Force India. So lots of bugs on the visors. This is a very new experience when you drive a V8 supercar. Of course, you did some time in the Aston Martin sports car program as well.
Absolutely, and obviously I spent 7 years in Formula One, and it's just great to get some real motorsport in again.
It's very real.
And proper racing, and I have to say, you know, I did the Gold Coast event last year,
Yes.
so that was my first experience in V8 supercars, and I just loved it, and I thought, you know, I definitely have to come back and do some more racing. And here I am, and I'm really looking forward to that.
And what about in terms of driving style, man? I mean, obviously the car's a lot different to the sorts of cars you've driven before. I mean, the big power, low grip in terms of tyre size and aero. Are you adapting to that okay?
It took me quite a bit of time to get used to that. Obviously, from everything I raced before, it's a totally different car to drive. And obviously had a few tests, and I'm okay now, but it takes a long time, yes, to get used to these kind of driving styles.
We've got some vision there of Christian on board. And there was some lunacy in the warm-up also. That's Craig Lowndes off the road at turn 1. Very fast. They had some brake locking issues yesterday. And this is you doing a little driver change with Russell Ingall.
Yeah, driver changes are working well. Obviously, they are important.
Be careful of this, because you want to keep your watch. You'll grab your watch and grab anything else while you do that.
It's still on.
Be careful of him.
We're talking about a car that's 2.5 times heavier than the cars that you're accustomed to. This is Andrew Jones finding the wall at turn 4. Taz Douglas flying through turns 2 and 3. And also the bloke that we had here before, Shane Van Gisbergen, Luke Youlden, car number 9. Andrew Jones ending up down in the gravel trap. David Russell also off at turn 4. A lot of pressure to drive these cars, and the point that I was going to make, they're so big and heavy, they don't have a lot of aero, the tyres don't have a lot of grip in relative terms compared to racing cars, so it's a really big change for somebody like you to come to terms with these cars.
Absolutely. Obviously, have a roof on top as well, which is good if it rains. Apart from that, it's you know, the way you drive these cars is totally different to single-seaters. As you said, they're very heavy, they're under-tired, overpowered, and so that means you have to change your whole driving style. Everything you learned before the last couple of years, forget it and start from new.
Christian, it's a great pleasure to have you in our country, and I don't want to be facetious and try and be clever, but they are talking about some rain this afternoon. When you said it's going to be good to have a roof on just in case it rains, I think you might see some of that later today. It's spring in Melbourne at Sandown. It's a strong possibility. Ladies and gentlemen, Christian Klein, Super Cheap Auto Racing. Have a great run this afternoon, and we'll look forward to seeing you later on. Coming up after the break, we're going to celebrate some of the great moments of Bathurst. Stay with us on V8 Extra. That's the scene in the pit paddock for the Dick Smith Sandown 500. 28 entries, 56 drivers, 500 kilometres, and the first of the races for the season of endurance kicks off today. Mark Scape's with me, and Scapey, it's a great time of the year. We love Bathurst, Sandown, Armour All Gold Coast 600. These longer races with the co-drivers really inject some interest for me.
Well, not only, I mean, we saw lunacy yesterday, but there's 900 points across these 3 race meetings, Neil, and the stakes are very, very high, and the sort of intensity, I haven't seen a race like that race yesterday afternoon for a long, long time.
Unbelievable. Now, we want to kind of get our thoughts around Bathurst, and for those of you that woke this morning and sat down, had a coffee, sat down and read the paper, maybe a News Limited paper somewhere around Australia, you will have seen some wonderful moments that have been outlined. The top 10 moments surrounding the Super Cheap Auto Bathurst 1000. We've all been asked to nominate them, and there's some extraordinary moments. This one, which Larko loves, from 1977, the famous Ford 1-2, Alan Moffat and Colin Bond. That is an iconic image.
Oh, it certainly is, and that was of the day the most controversial finish in the era. And what about this? The birth of Race Cam for Channel 7. This was Peter Williamson, who was just fantastic at this, wasn't he? He was better on the chat than you were.
He was scheduled to drive with you in what was to be your very first Bathurst drive, but that was a remarkable moment. So was this. This was one of your favourite moments. You spoke about it yesterday on the telecast. 6 laps for Brock, a victory. Incredible. And then this moment, Mark Beretta spoke about it. The rock for Dick Johnson, the True Blue Ford Falcon. An emotional moment.
Oh, what about Kevin Bartlett in the Camaro in 1982 at the top of the hill? As soon as you come up under the tree, and popped a left-hand rear tyre and sideways. And this, in qualifying, the top 10 for Dick Johnson in 1983, a massive crash coming onto Conrod Straight. And I was here for this one.
Yes, 1992. The less said, the better.
Yeah.
But you and I might have had something to do with this.
We did, but I'm glad my mentor, Jim Richards, said what he said.
2003, Matty loves this one. It was a hair stand-up moment in the garage at Kmart Auto Racing and Greg Murphy with that extraordinary lap. The first time anybody got in the sixes at Bathurst, and then Craig Lowndes winning the Peter Brock Trophy. That was an emotional moment in 2006. It was a terrible time for the industry. It was a very big moment and a special moment for Craig. And then last year, now, I know this brought a tear to your eye, but it was an extraordinary motor race.
Well, to be, 1,000 kilometres, Crompo, and only have 0.2 of a second between the cars at the end of that sort of race. When you consider a Peter Brock win in 1979 by 6 laps, you can tell the competition has certainly come on.
Things have changed over the decades. So we're celebrating 50 fantastic years at Bathurst. And, of course, we're looking forward to the Super Cheap Auto Bathurst 1000. Now, if you want to cast a vote and assemble some information in the order that you like, then go to the V8 Supercars website, v8supercars.com.au, and if you have a look at the News Limited papers around Australia today, you can have a look at some of those wonderful moments. Now, of course, our thoughts are turning to Bathurst, and with that in mind, Mark Beretta's with a couple of guys who've done pretty well up there recently.
Well, it is that time of the year where these two guys come to the fore. Garth Tander and Nick Percat, defending Bathurst champions. Nick, ready to go again?
Yeah, definitely. Can't wait to get back to Bathurst. Pretty good year for me last year, obviously. First go up there, had a good result, so I'm looking forward to getting back there with more experience, more comfortable in GT's car, so it should be a good year.
Garth, you just step up at this time of the year. We saw it in the qualifying sessions yesterday, but third on the grid today, and this stepping stone towards Bathurst is a big one.
Yeah, I think it's probably coincidence that it's timed in with some changes we've made with the car and some personnel changes in the team that we're sort of starting to turn our form around a little bit, but it's not a bad time of the year to be peaking. So look, we're having a strong Sandown. The qualifying in the car was fantastic. Qualifying races were great. And traditionally we've always had a good car at Bathurst, so looking forward to getting back up there. Like Nick said, it's good to have a year under his belt. So we'll go back there as defending champions. There's a lot of work to be done during that week at Bathurst, but looking forward to it. Always look forward to this time of year.
And a special one this year, being the 50th anniversary. Does that make it, I guess, even more of a trophy to win this year?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Bathurst is a special race regardless how you cut the mustard, but 50 years anniversary it's going to be a special race. There's a lot of obviously going on as far as celebrating 50 years at Bathurst. So to be part of that story with a win would be fantastic, and to go back to back as well. So young fella's got 100% strike rate up there at the moment, so the pressure's probably actually on me to help him deliver to keep his strike rate up.
All right, you keep the pressure on him, Nick. Good luck, boys. Enjoy the mountain. We'll see you there.
Cheers. Thanks, Brett. Thanks.
And Garth Tander and Nick Percat. So there it is, Super Cheap Auto Bathurst 1000, October 4 through 7. Check out the V8 Supercar website for more information. Of course, check your local guides in terms of the television coverage. But it's enormous. We've got coverage on Friday, coverage on Saturday, coverage on Sunday. Now, speaking of enormous, a great opportunity, enormous opportunity to grab, to purchase something very special. We've chosen just one of a range of things that are currently available from the 7shop.com.au. This one, Scafey, the Master and his Apprentice, Peter Brock and Craig Lowndes. It's fantastic.
It's very good, isn't it? Exhibit A.
Exhibit A, yes. And on the easel there, it looked like something you knocked up in craft overnight. One of 200 very special units, and it's got all the signatures on it, beautiful images, and $495 delivery in late September. Now, also, while we're in plug mode, the Shannon's Supercar Showdown. Coming up, we've got 3 rookies remaining. Who gets the opportunity to make a start on the grid for the Super Cheap Auto Bathurst 1000? Coverage of that one next Saturday, 1:30 on 7. Mate, that's a big opportunity for somebody. It's a nail biter.
It certainly is. A big deep breath moment, that one, isn't it, when you go to that place?
We'll take a break on V8 Extra. We'll come back and wrap up a bit more here from the paddock for the Dick Smith Sandown 500. Fantastic to see fans in all colours supporting their favourite drivers and teams. Welcome back to our coverage of the Dick Smith Sandown 500. This is V8 Extra, our very special preview of the race this afternoon. We love the interaction that we have with you folks. We get lots of questions on the email. This week, Big Pond Sport email question is from Scott Willman in Queensland. How do different size drivers like Davey Reynolds and Dean Canto sort out their driving positions? Now, it's a very good question, and it's probably something that to some extent is underrated as a problem going into these events. And the bloke with the answer is Mark Larkham in the garage.
Yeah, well, that's a really good question. So before we get into actually how they deal with the different heights of drivers, you've got to understand why it's really important. Now, when you're sitting in the driver's seat, obviously vision is important. That goes without saying. The other really critical one is brake applications. Now, remember, when you put your foot on the pedal, you're going to be doing upward of maybe 100 kilos of pedal force. Around Sandown here during the race, you might do 500 of those. If you don't get the driver ergonomics right, you're going to put a lot of pressure and a lot of pain into your lower back. The most important one for me, though, is when you're sitting in a race car, you cannot drive it well unless you sit in a position that makes you feel in the race car, not sitting on the race car. Now, I've had a look at the two drivers here, Davey Reynolds and Dean Canto. I got them to take their gear off, have a look at them. Not only are they at different heights, I can tell you those boys have some weird bits. Their hip heights are different, their legs are different, everything about it. So let's jump in and have a quick look at some of the things they do to get around that issue. So in the race car, there's not a lot of adjustment like your road car. For example, the seat doesn't sit on sliders, so you can't pull the lever and slide it fore and aft. Nor can you adjust the steering column like you can with a little lever under the dash there. As you can see here, the steering column is actually mounted via this bearing onto the roll cage, so that's fixed solid. A little bit of adjustability in your pedals, that helps. And you can also put a spacer in the steering wheel here to try and get that better for differences in arm's length. Now, the trick to making it work between the two drivers of different size, though, is this device. The little throw-in baby seat, as we call it, that little insert, that's Dean Canto's. Now, I can tell you from experience, that is a very, very thick insert and demonstrates the difference between these two drivers. It's important that they get him right so they can optimise the restraint via the 6-point harness. Why 6 points? Because it's got 2 on the hips, 2 over the shoulders, and 2 up through the crutch. So you're restrained from 6 different points in the car. Very important. But look at this. This is clever. I've just noticed. There you are, to accommodate the differences in size around the waist. You can see there, look at that, 2 waist belts. Now, I'm going to not tell you which guy's the bigger in that area, but that's quite clever stuff.
Thanks for the update on that one, Larko. I bumped into Johnny McIntyre on the way here to V8 Extra this morning. Last year he drove with Shane van Gisbergen, and he said that it was really difficult to share the car because of the differences they had and the tailored preferences in terms of the ergonomics of the car. It's a really big issue and an interesting topic that we'll focus on this afternoon. Scafey, it's going to happen this afternoon, 161 laps. Top 5 contenders. We talked about this yesterday. 4 of the top 5 contenders went nowhere, effectively.
Well, we called it, didn't we? We started to sort of prelude this battle for championship supremacy, and clearly Whincup and Winterbottom were the 2 most important in this, and Paul Dumbrell did a very good job. Whincup didn't qualify very well. Whincup did a great job in the first race, and this young man, Warren Luff, with Craig Lowndes, also huge amount of pressure on these championship contenders.
The reason I looked up a moment ago as we go into the garage at Ford Performance Racing and look at the combination Mark Winterbottom and Stephen Richards, I just get this feeling that that weather is coming. Oh. And you know what happens here in springtime at Melbourne, Sandown 500. There's Johnny Mack that I spoke of a moment ago. He's changed colours. We've been accustomed to seeing him at the Stone Brothers garage in the recent past, and he'll be driving at Ford Performance Racing with Will Davison, Trading Post Racing. Done a very, very good job. Also driving in the New Zealand Super Touring Championship. There's Nick Percat, 1 for 1 at Bathurst. What an extraordinary record. And those guys, as they said to Mark Beretta just a little earlier, have certainly smartened up the form of the car, and they're coming into these endurance races looking good. There's a bit of the weather from the southwest. It's timed to lob here just before the start of the race. That'll make it interesting.
Well, we didn't need any more interest from yesterday, did we? I mean, it was a very, very intense race, and one of the things that we spoke about was those sort of 4 to 5 guys that are key pairings, but of those 4 or 5 that we just showed you, it was only really Garth Tander and Nick Percat who were the guys to beat based on their form coming in. They did a very good job, very solid job. All the rest had drama.
It's coming up, 161 laps, Dick Smith, Sandown 500. Matty White will be up very shortly to head up the telecast. I hope you can stay with us. It's going to be a brilliant afternoon of V8 Supercar Racing. Hope you've enjoyed V8 Extra today. We'll be back with you in just a tick.